What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about communism? Some of you might think about Marx, Stalin, and Mao. Others are thinking about the dream of social equality. Yet others think about a much gloomier picture of famines, oppressive regimes, and censorship. But how many of you thought of women? Strong, powerful women. Both out of ideology and practical necessity. Soviet Russia, where I'm from, empowered women. I grew up with movies like Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears, which told of a story of a young girl who moved to Moscow from a small village and went on becoming a head of a big factory. Or an epic Soviet comedy called Office Romance that talks about a love spark between a timid male accountant and his strong female boss. Did you know that the first woman in space was Russian? In 1963, Valentina Tereshkova made the trip to space. And that would be another 20 years before any other woman would go and make that trip. So female role models in Soviet Russia were those of female cosmonauts, engineers, accountants, and lady bosses. At a time when in the West, slightly different female role models were promoted. Let's take a stroll down the memory lane for a couple of minutes, looking at a few posters. You will notice that women in each pair look so similar that they could in fact be sisters. But the messages are extremely different. When Soviet women went to space, in the West, they didn't leave the kitchen. When in the USSR, women were picking up bricks to help build the country, in the West, men doubted whether a woman could open a bottle of ketchup. And when in Soviet Union, they encouraged women to go and get their degree in mechanical engineering in university, in the West, they made us worry about a flat chest. I was born in the 1980s, in the last years of the Soviet Union. My mom's two sisters would be a kindergarten headmistress and a math teacher. And my mom, there in the middle, went on becoming a university professor. There was never a question of whether you would go back to work after having children. My mom was back 2 weeks after she gave birth to me and my brother. My father was what you would now call a feminist. He was a hands-on parent from day one. He would read me bedtime stories before I went to bed and would hold my hand at night because I was afraid of the dark. He was the one who accompanied me to school entrance exams when most of the other kids came with their moms. These were the norms of my world. And it shaped my belief that as a girl, I could do anything. I had no limitations on who I could become. Of course, the days of the Soviet Union are now long gone, but some traditions have a long shadow. In 2016, Russia again topped the rank of the countries with women in senior roles, with 45% of senior roles being held by women, compared to 23% in the US, 15% in Germany, and 30% in China. I grew up in Vladivostok, which is just 2 hours drive from China's northern border. And as a kid, we bought virtually all our clothes and many daily necessities in Chinese markets. So I was exposed to our socialist neighbors from early on, and later on decided to move to China for my studies. I arrived in Chongqing at 17 years old, mistakenly imagining that it was a village in central China. Little did I know that population-wise, Chongqing is the largest city in the world, with 32 million people. I went on studying Chinese and getting my business degree at a local university and starting my career in China. And China showed me a lot of strong female role models, but there was one huge difference. While Soviet communism was hostile to entrepreneurship, the post-1978 China was not. I saw everybody hustling, and very often women running the show, especially in Chongqing, which is famous for its strong women. Chinese women were also very comfortable with money, comfortable naming the price and fighting for it. And they were very resourceful, meaning even when they didn't have the means to make something happen, they would still find a way. I remember that one time I walked into the shoe store and I spied a pair of sneakers I really liked. So I asked the shop owner whether she had them in black. She paused, thought for a second, and said, yes. 10 minutes later, she was back with a pair of sneakers she had spray painted black. The paint was still wet. For those of you that never lived or worked in mainland China, it might be surprising how many top executives of Chinese companies are women. But this is especially true in Chinese tech sector, where, according to some stats, up to 80% of companies have at least one woman on the board. And this not to say that China is perfect. Yeah? Those same local tech companies hire female cheerleaders to motivate their male programmers. And women are labeled leftovers if they are not married by the time they're 27. And like everywhere else in the world, more female senior leadership is needed in the corporate world. But this has not stopped China from becoming arguably the world's best breeding grounds for female entrepreneurs. Did you know that 114 out of the world's 147 female self-made billionaires are made in China? That's 80% of the global total. And according to government stats, women account for 55% of all Chinese internet entrepreneurs. So when I left Chongqing at 21, the concepts I learned in my childhood were reinforced. No limitations. No limitations to what a woman could achieve in life, no limitations to what I could achieve in business. Arriving to Hong Kong, I started off in a corporate job, but soon realized it wasn't for me, and I wanted to be my own boss. I went on starting my own company, but I soon realized entrepreneurship journey would not be the limitless journey I imagined. When I went on applying for my entrepreneur's visa in Hong Kong, the officer looked at my applications and said, but you already have a work visa. Why don't you just renew it or get married or something? Starting a business in Hong Kong is hard and most of it fails, right? I was just like, get married or something? And then after presenting to some potential partners, they asked who was behind the business. So I said, I was the founder. Then one man turns to the other in amusement and says, check it out, a chick built it. And then there were people writing things like, great legs, under my LinkedIn post from a speaking event. And these incidents might be familiar to some women in the audience, but growing up not questioning female leadership, they were a surprise to me. So going forward, what do we do differently? I thought all of us as entrepreneurs face challenging times. And these moments can be honestly quite dark. And it's not only about the gender bias. I had to face all those challenges that most of other entrepreneurs face, like clients turning away the last minute and office towels needing to be washed, employees needing to be fired and hired, and business models not working out financially. Most of these moments can be very dark. And when you do not see the way out or path forward, you feel trapped and you doubt everything. Looking for answers, I did seminars, I hired mentors, and I tried peer groups. And it was all great. But I wanted something visual, something inspirational. I needed to draw motivation from something concrete, a role model. In modern world, we have many female role models, but usually women are somehow in the dark. They don't like to put themselves out there. And we don't know their stories that well, especially here in Asia. So I went on to create my own Dragon Ashley. She is reflecting all the great values I grew up with and learned along the way. When faced with doubts, she is not afraid to look for motivation in the ladies that went to space. And when she's faced with a no, she won't take it for an answer. In fact, she will ask, how can it be made possible? And when faced with a challenge, she's not afraid to get her hands dirty and spray paint some sneakers. And when it's about money, she doesn't have second thoughts when negotiating harder and higher. So the truth is, in your life and business, you will have dark moments and doubts along the way. And you'll need role models to look up to and draw inspiration from. I encourage you to create your own role model. When I was creating Dragon Ashley, in fact, for some of the Beyoncé fans out there, I was drawing inspiration from her alter ego, Sasha Fierce. So go out there and look for role models that fit your situation. And if you can't find them, it's okay. Create your own. Create your own Sasha Fierce or Dragon Ashley and learn from her. Work hard to become like her. And then one day, I promise you, you will meet her in person. You will look her in the eye, and she will be looking back at you in the mirror. Thank you.